So I'm getting close to separating the chassis from the body on the Esprit. The two front bolts are out, the two back bolts are out. I believe there's 4 of them in the firewall, so that's a total of 8 so far that I still, the two front bolts are out, the two back bolts are out. What I have yet to do is there are full 4 bolts, 2 and 2 in the firewall, as I'm told. To get to those, I gotta pull the carpet out, which is what I'm gonna do now. So that'd be 4 plus 2, 2 is 8. There's 1 on each side in the footwell, so that's a total of 10. Then the seatbelt stalks, those are out, that's 12. And then it's my understanding that somewhere between the foot pedals and the seatbelt stalk on both sides, there's 2 more, which would be 14 total bolts. So out of the 14 total so far, I've addressed 6 of them. And then once those are out, I gotta get the steering knuckle out from under the car. I've gotta loosen that. And then the last thing I have to do is get the 4 bolts that hold the steering box, the pedal box, to the chassis. I've gotten 3 of those, 2 on the left and the 1 in the front on the right. But the one on the right back is just, I don't know how anybody can do that. Certainly not somebody my size. So I think what I'm going to do is drill a hole through the trunk area, big enough to put a ratchet down, or big enough to put a socket down there, and access not just the nut or the bolt and back, but the bolts, both bolts on the right front hand side, because putting the steering box back in is not going to be fun if I have to try to find the hole blindly, not being able to see it, only by feel, and keeping and turning those bolts. I don't know how you can do it. Getting it out, taking those bolts out, you can take a 1/4-inch rod, stick it in there, and after a number of times you'll finally get the top of it. But trying to seat a bolt into the hole and then tightening it down, I don't see how you can do that the way that I took it out. So putting it back in is going to be a nightmare, and to alleviate that, I'm going to drill a hole through the frunk, and then it'll be big enough to get, maybe that big, just to get the socket down there and an extension with a swivel, so I can get both of those bolts on the right hand side, and then it'll get a rubber escutcheon similar to the ones that are on the car now that have wiring harnesses passed through them. All right, so first things first, let's get this carpet off. This is the passenger compartment. The passenger seat would be here. This is the rear firewall. I ripped the carpet out, and I am going to replace the padding, but they at least give you an access to grab the 2 bolts. So I'll grab those now, and the padding is going to stay on for the moment, because I want the dimensions of it, and I want the thickness of it. I want what I put back on it to match what came off. So the padding will stay on for now, but at least now I can get access to those. And 14 millimeter. Okay, as far as the large bolts holding the body to the chassis, I'll show you all the ones I've removed. There's 2 in the front, so I'll show you the first one's on that side, and then corresponding ones over there. In both footwells, you have one up front, right over there. You've got that one right there. You've got the seat belt stalk, and then a hidden one right there. So on this side of the car so far, that's the one up front. That one is number 2. That one's number 3. That's 4. That's 5. 6 and 7. And last but not least, 8. This one's removed, it's just in there because I want to make sure nothing shifts. So 8 bolts on the left side, which means there's 8 on the right side, and I've removed those. So there's a total of 16 bolts going from the body to the chassis itself. As far as the major bolts, there's a number of other connectors, but as far as big body bolts, there's 16 total. None of them are particularly difficult to access. It certainly helps if you have two people, because you know it's a well-known fact that Lotus uses nylon lock nuts, and they're not captive, obviously. So as a result, you've got to get a wrench on both sides when you want to get them off. So having two people really helps. But I found, especially for the ones in there that run into the center chassis, you could climb under there and just let the wrench hang with the box end, and then you could use a impact gun and in a couple attempts pull it off. You'd get about a third of the way, it would rattle off, put it back on, a third of the way it would rattle off, and then the last time I was able to get it off. So all right, so now I have to, sorry, it's really windy today. So now I have to consider drilling a hole right about here, probably right like that. And that should give me access to the bolt that is probably right over there somewhere. But by drilling it here, I should also have access to the bolt in front too, because that's going to be a pain to get off as well. Yeah, stay tuned for that. So when I considered, when I was going to drill a hole and I was sizing the location, it's actually right around here that I have to get access to. And drilling a hole here wouldn't get me that access because there's a ridge that runs. But I'm wondering if this mudded in, or I'm wondering if this silicone or glue adhered in section comes out. If I remove that screw, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 screws, and then cut away the sealant, I wonder if that opens this whole thing up. I know how to find out. Yay! That is a victory. Okay. If anybody's watching this and is going to ever remove this, once you remove the ends, this rod, which is obviously connected to the dial for letting the air in or recirculating in the cabin, has an eye in it, and that goes on this little pin right there. So what you need to do is lift it up, pull the Carter pin out, pull the little retaining clip out, and then slide that with a screwdriver that way, and you can pull it off. Good, I'm happy about that. It's always a good day when you don't break something taking it apart. I gotta take this heater out, this blower motor out, but to do that, to get this blower motor out, there's two 10mm bolts, but there's probably zero chance that the nut on the other side is captive. Try it. But. that. Sometimes the gods are smiling upon me. The Lotus gods are smiling. Colin Chapman's smiling upon me. This one has a captive nut on it. That's 1, 2. That's the cooling radiator right there, or the heating cooling radiators right there. So this is to access that radiator. So if I'm going to take this off, I will take that radiator out, have it pressure tested to confirm it doesn't leak. That would be the time to do that. I'll run this to confirm it works, but it's a GM part too. I'll likely see if I can upgrade it to something with more CFM, because I've heard people say that the existing one doesn't throw off enough, circulate the air fast enough. But if you're curious, that's the GM part number 220-30973. Okay, I gotta get a razor blade, a razor knife, and see if I could slip it behind that, and then gently pry it off. Oh, don't break it. That piece is cracked right there. I don't know if I'm gonna plastic weld that to repair that. Let me get a razor knife. There we go. Sweet. Shoot. Oh no, this is the one that was in the end. Okay. Why I didn't take this off, I don't know. All right. So I took this blower motor off, and then took this shroud off in the front, and lo and behold, that is the bolt you can't get to from inside, but is perfectly acceptable if you want to tear this apart. And I'm going to take this apart anyway, just to I'm going to check that radiator. I have access to it now. I think you still get that from the inside. But I might as well pressure test that, make sure it's not leaking so the coolant stays in it. Yeah, super happy about that. All right, there's the master cylinder and clutch cylinder, slave cylinder. It's out. Probably try to figure out who I can send this to get it tested, rebuilt if necessary, if you can rebuild it. All the metal I want to get sandblasted and powder coated. Lots of rust came from there. So the steering column is mounted. There's 4 bolts on the base of the steering column pedal box that have to come off because they go to the chassis. And then there's these 4 bolts which hold the steering column to the body of the car and you have to take those off. If I didn't want to separate the steering column from the body of the car, then I didn't have to take this off. But as it is, it's, again, strip the entire thing down, give it a nice paint job, and put it back together. That's the plan. All right, I think the only thing holding the steering column in anymore is that nut right there. Throw this one back on here so it doesn't drop down on me. Oh, there we go. Are we on there yet? There we go. Capture that nut. Alright, loosen this. Alright, so it's hung up on the steering knuckle. I loosened it, but it's probably gonna fight me a bit. It's moving. Yeah, that's moving. Why isn't it? What's on the back side of it? Maybe I'll loosen it up some more. Are you an idiot? Ow. So like an idiot, I the back side of this, the 4 bolts that go through go through the foot pedal area, I had threaded them back on just so I wouldn't lose them. So I would have been here a long time pulling on this because they aren't coming out until those come off. All right, now it should come out. And there's that. And come on out. Come on, you want to come out. I know you do. Oh. It's so it can only go in one way. Okay. That makes sense. Alright, you get disconnected. What else we got? Any more wires? No, you're free. You're free. I think you're free. All right. Let's try this again. the shaft anymore because it's turning free. So what are we still hung up on though? All this. Damn it. I bet if I take the steering wheel off, I can then lower this more and it won't make contact. That's my bet. All right. Let me see how they did it online. Good bit of work today. At 4:30, I got off work, threw on my outside work clothes, and was able to remove the master cylinder and slave cylinder for the brakes and the clutch, the steering wheel, and the this guy. Yeah, so the good thing is the electrical looks pretty decent. I know that doesn't mean too much, but it's better than looking really bad. And there's the steering wheel, the pedal box. It's going to get blasted. It needs it. Blasted and coated. Yeah. All the rust will be taken care of. Steering wheel, I have a replacement. It's another Lotus steering wheel like this. I know people don't like it, but I'm just trying to get back to ground zero. So take that one off. While it's off, I can test all the circuits to make sure they work. So yeah, good bit of work today. Oh, if you're doing this and you're taking this out, this guy, be aware that there's a bracket on the top of the pedal box whose only purpose, besides to make your life miserable, is to hold some hoses. They're some sort of, probably for the coolant, coming to and from the AC heater radiator under the dashboard, and they meet at a junction point, and that junction point is held by this bracket right here. So the only way, the way I was able to get access to it, it wasn't from the bottom. It was once the steering wheel's dropped, you can stick your arm in where the steering wheel went, and with a ratchet on one hand, a 1/4-inch ratchet, you can hit the 8mm nuts on top. There's two of them, or I should say the 8mm bolts on top. There's two of them, and the nuts on the back of the 8mm wrench. You can hold it with your left hand, and it comes apart. So, yeah, I'd say I got to this in the nick of time. That's just surface rust. You can see because there's the old layer of paint, but yeah, we wouldn't want it to wait too much longer. So, all good. Okay, teardown continues. A bunch of wiring harnesses. The oil cooler line, which I don't think is savable. I'll have to buy another one of those. The power antenna, some ducting, that black tube, this black little PVC pipe, I believe is for the boost gauge, I'm guessing, I don't know. A bunch of wiring harnesses, a bunch of ductwork, a bunch of modules, and the antenna. And the door. And if you think, wow, it must look pretty empty in there, it actually looks like a mess. So, yeah, going through, trying to remove everything I can. Okay, on to costs.
The only bit of work I had done this time around was I paid the machine shop $500 to mount the sleeves, re-adhere them into the block, and then pressure test them. That was $500, bringing my total engine and chassis work up to $1,306.45, and a total project cost thus far to $6,256.66. Thanks for following along.